Stand ready for my arrival, worm.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Invincible Season 3, Episode 7 video. They did Invincible War. That was the main part of the episode. But they also finally brought Conquest, and it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan from The Walking Dead. They finally revealed what he was doing. They teased it a long time ago. Now we finally know. There's so many Easter eggs, it's getting so crazy, so if you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all the episodes, and we're going to be getting Season 4 next year too. I'll talk more about that after the finale next week. So if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. The funny thing is, it feels like we're just getting started. There's so much escalation the next couple of seasons, the arcs that they haven't even gotten to yet. There's so much stuff coming. But the episode title was What Have I Done?, which is a reference to Mark thinking all this was his fault, like it's the guilt that he has over what Angstrom Levy did, because he kind of is at fault here, because Angstrom Levy is the whole reason why this is happening, and he was responsible for what happened to Angstrom Levy in the first place. Even though technically, if you really think about it, Angstrom Levy kind of did that to himself and then wound up blaming Mark for it. It was kind of a Powerplex situation when it came to Angstrom Levy in Season 2. Like, wait a minute, dude, you're the guy that caused all this destruction. It really wasn't until he lost his mind that he then started blaming Invincible for what happened. Should have finished the job and even left him alive at the end of this episode. So don't worry, we will get to that too, because I love the way they end the episode with a very Hellraiser type of scene, because they had Doug Bradley playing those technicians. So if you were getting Hellraiser Cenobite vibes, like Pinhead vibes, that was on purpose. They wound up doing all 18 different versions from the comic version of this, and a lot of the scenes during the actual episode, a lot of the dialogue was directly ripped out of the comics, like they were doing comic book panels for a lot of the scenes, including the beginning of the episode, a lot of the way the fights went down. There were a couple of changes to some of the fights for rights issues. During the original version of this in the comics, they even had a big Spawn crossover, but that was one of the big rights issues that they had, so they had to substitute Wolfman for Spawn during one of the fights. And all of Conquest's dialogue and the way that their first meeting goes down, the way they start their fight, is directly out of the comics. So like it was ripped right off of the page. So these last two episodes feel like they're going to be bangers, both of them, and it feels like this is where most of the animation budget went for the series. So if you felt like it was kind of weak sauce in the first couple episodes this season, or you felt like there were some episodes that felt a little bit like filler, that's probably why, because they put most of the budget towards like these really, really big episodes. The episode starts with a flashback to the end of Season 2 to show you what really happened to Angstrom Levy after Mark thought that he killed him. He barely survived, like his head is basically a bunch of mush and soup. Portaled himself to an alternate dimension where the technician's base was and used it as his base all this season. That was the place we kept seeing him this season. And the way they explain it is the technicians are just another race. I don't know if they're like an alternate version of humanity from some other dimension, but they're basically meant to be parodies of the Cenobites in the Hellraiser movies, because Doug Bradley voices all these different characters. And at the end of the episode where they say that Angstrom Levy now works for them and there'll be endless delights, that's meant to be another Hellraiser parody too, because in a lot of the Hellraiser movies, Pinhead and the Cenobites drag the characters down to their dimension, their hell dimension, and basically tell them the exact same thing. So they kind of make the technician's base feel a little bit like hell in the Hellraiser movies, and all the technicians look a little bit like the Cenobites. Like, please don't sue us. Robert Kirkman doesn't want to get sued again because he's been in that Walking Dead lawsuit since the beginning of time.
And your remains will gift us endless fascination.
Then it jumps to present day with him opening the multiple portals, all the alternate reality Invincibles flying through and starting their attacks all over the world, hoping to overwhelm all of Earth's heroes, most notably Mark, who Angstrom Levy thinks has no chance of defeating them all at the same time. Some of these scenes, like I said, are direct copies of comic book panels, like when they fly right through the portals. Robert Kirkman said that before they even started making Season 1, he was thinking about how they would accomplish doing Invincible War on screen, like how are they going to fit all this into an episode or a series. Traditionally, you would expect them to break this up to like 4 different episodes, but they wound up speed running it through a single episode, just breaking it apart using the title cards to denote the different days, because it did take multiple days. Angstrom Levy gets the title treatment this week and orders them all to make this world fear Invincible, basically wanting to tear down his legacy, like get this world to hate this version of Mark before he gives them all what they asked for, the bargains that they made. All of them are really just puppets to him, like he's just using them as a tool to tear down the main version of Mark before he kills him. First, they start on the white and blue logo, and all the flashing logos subsequently are for the costumes of the other Invincibles, ending on the gray and yellow one. But remember, there are 18 different versions at the start of the episode, and 8 by the end of the episode, so everybody on Earth manages to kill 10 of them, and Invincible wasn't the one to kill every single one. So they did show during the episode that there are some powerful heroes on Earth, and when they team up, they are able to fight Viltrumites, but the problem with that is that not all these different versions of Mark were the same power level. They're even very careful to note later in this episode that this main version of Mark is also more powerful than most of them. But that's why most of the heroes on Earth are able to kill some of the versions, because they're not as powerful as their Mark. When he tells them if they accomplish their goals, everything they want will be theirs, the bargain that Angstrom Levy made with most of them, like he made different bargains, but the biggest one with the largest percentage of them was that he would help them conquer the multiverse using his powers. Some of them, though, and like this one in particular, at the end of the episode, we find only wanted this main universe version of Debbie to replace his version of Debbie in his universe who died because he loved his mother, unlike some of the other versions of Mark who killed their mothers in their universes. There's also the bargain he made with the technicians that he reneged on at the end of the episode, which they wind up capturing him for. They don't completely explain what he promised them. Maybe we'll find out eventually, because Angstrom Levy, like I said, still alive at the end of the episode, and probably going to come back into the story much later. Anybody who's not permadead can always come back later in the story at some point, but at least for the most part, Angstrom Levy is out of the story for now. We find them hanging out at Eve's home. He's still shaken up by the Powerplex event, and he's still remorseful for what happened during the fight with his father and all the collateral damage in Chicago. But tell you, it's going to be way worse with collateral damage by the end of this episode, like most of the planet is collateral damage. There's a little bit about him not meeting her parents yet, and he's worried that she doesn't really believe in him or like their relationship, but she explains the reason why she's hesitant to have them all meet is because she's more worried about what her parents are going to do because her father really hates superheroes. Which, as he points out, is ironic because his father is like the worst father on the planet. Like everybody on the planet hates Omni-Man. And their phones start blowing up with reports of all the different fights with the alternate Invincibles around the world. We start to get a montage of the fights around the world with the different versions, and Ryan Ottley, the artist who drew the original comic book and works on the show too, said that his favorite alternate version of Invincible is the Mohawk version of Mark, who does get a lot of play during this episode. Like, all the different versions get a little bit of dialogue, but Mohawk Mark seems like he gets the most dialogue of all the alternate versions. You can let me know in the comments who your favorite alternate version of the character is. During each of the different fights, they mostly just taunt everyone with how weak and pathetic everything is on this planet. Like, the prisons are too nice, the people are too crappy to even keep as pets, which is also something that Omni-Man said about Debbie during Season 1 when he was referring to her as a pet.
She's more like a pet to me.
This Russian hero with the metallic skin looks like a Colossus parody from X-Men. He's Russian in the comics too. He fights this version of Mark, who also says that he had been in a Viltrumite prison in his universe for an entire year. So not clear what he did in his universe to get thrown in a Viltrumite prison if he turned evil on his planet. Maybe he just went off the rails completely and the Viltrumites didn't want to deal with him. Probably one of the more mentally unstable versions of the character. Like, there are a couple of them that feel like they're really wild. They're calling this one Viltrumite Mark. He's fighting Wolfman from the Invincible comics. In the original comic book version of this, Viltrumite Mark was fighting Spawn, like I said, but they had the rights issue. They couldn't use that character during the animated version, so they just had to substitute Wolfman. But he is a big character in the comics. He got his own spin-off comic book for a little while. Originally, he was a regular man who just got cursed to become a werewolf. He's based on the classic Universal Wolfman monster films. Basically the same concept of Werewolf by Night at Marvel. Basically the same type of powers, like werewolf powers. Cape Mark is fighting Best Tiger, who's based on Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe, a little bit from Daredevil and Marvel, and because he's a crack shot, you could also think of him as a Bullseye reference too, which we literally just started doing episode videos for, like my Daredevil episode 1, episode 2 video just posted a little while ago. But he doesn't have any special powers the way that most superheroes do. He's just incredibly skilled. He lands a shot on him too. Then we go to Rex helping Ray move into her new apartment, having just quit the team, until they're called to action by the other Marks who attack, interrupting Sexy Time. How dare they interrupt Sexy Time? He makes the unfortunate promise that he'd be right back Terrible thing to say before a big battle like this. Also, he'd been talking about how the team thought he was less of a douchebag now, like he's finally turning himself around, being more of a hero. Does not bode well for a character if they do those things right before a giant fight. Our Mark encounters Mohawk Mark first. They have a bit of a funny moment together, but the reason why he's able to take him out so quickly is, like I said, he's meant to be more powerful than a lot of other versions, particularly this version. Some of the other heroes start showing up. This is Bolt. He got struck by lightning that gave him powers. He's more of a Shazam reference from DC. This is Knockout. She uses magical boxing gloves that give her powers. She feels like more of a Daredevil reference. And this is meant to be Kid Thor. We saw them in a previous season. His hammer was created by a Viking a long time ago, given to the actual god Thor. There are real gods that exist inside the Invincible universe. He used it as a replacement for his Mjolnir hammer, so we're talking like Marvel Thor references. Then eventually returned the new hammer to that Viking that made it, then passed it on to his future generations, so the hammer itself was imbued with some divine energy when the real Thor was using it. All these heroes work for a team called Capes Inc. There are a couple big teams around the world. Powerplex winds up escaping from his cell during the chaos, happy to see them all teaming up against Mark, thinking that he's one of the evil versions, but winds up fighting Mohawk Mark. Then we go to Oliver, who's able to convince Debbie to let him go help people out. Mostly starts with low-level stuff, but then it escalates pretty quickly, as you would expect. Back at the GDA, Cecil's killed the power suit version of Mark using the Reaniman and the inner ear weapon, because the other versions all have the same weaknesses that the main version of Mark has. Notice Donald got roughed up, some of his skin got ripped off, none the worse for wear though. They figure out pretty quickly what's happened with the other versions from other universes, and they're careful to note that not all the alternate versions are as strong as the main Mark, so they do have a chance of actually killing them. Big problem though, they explain the engineering wing of the GDA was destroyed by this current version when he broke in, so they can't make more of the inner ear devices. Also, this presents some interesting challenges for what happens with Conquest later after he shows up at the end of the episode in next week's episode. Basically, the GDA is without a lot of their abilities, their technology.
Everyone, Donald. Everyone.
But a lot of this is to set up Cecil and Mark meeting again during the episode and kind of teaming up briefly, even though he still kind of hates him. Like, it is wild out there with all these other versions showing up. We need to team up, we need to rally the wagons, put our differences aside. Cecil then basically saying they're going to call every single known superhero and villain on the planet, anybody with any level of power to help out. The first one they show is Brit. He's played by another big Breaking Bad reference here, Jonathan Banks, who shows up. Aaron Paul also in the episode too as Powerplex, so a lot of Breaking Bad energy in the episode. Brit is basically a Captain Britain, Captain America reference, like Brit for British, and a longtime friend of Cecil when he used to be younger, but his powers are mostly super soldier, Captain America type powers. He sends all available heroes through a portal to different fights around the world. Then we see Oliver trying to save people and mistaking one of the alternate versions for his version of Mark starting their fight. Regular Mark finally figures out that it was Angstrom Levy who was behind this, but doesn't completely know exactly how it went down because he still thinks that he's it. Like, I killed him, how could it be him? But he's the only person that could make this happen. Helps the other heroes take out another version. Then in Egypt, they do the same bit with Kahor that they do every single season. Like, they bring back Chloe Bennett's bit, so she comes back as the Riley character for another cameo scene. One of the other alternate Marks is in a fight with Immortal, gets knocked into Kahor's tomb, and the whole idea is that he needs a male to inhabit his body so that he can escape his tomb. So he finally has a male, but he's not powerful enough, so they end the scene with another gag of him not being able to escape. Like, that's the whole bit. He'll probably come back every single season. If it goes 9 seasons or however many seasons the show goes, we'll still get Kahor scenes trying to escape his tomb and failing to do so. Or maybe by like the final season, he'll finally escape. If you couldn't tell either, it's Clancy Brown doing the voice of Kahor. There's so much celebrity talent, like there are so many big hitters and voice actors that they got for this particular episode, but that's kind of Robert Kirkman's thing on Invincible, is getting like really big celebrity actors to come do voices. Oliver gets a little bit of help during his fight with his Mark from the capes that show up. This little character fighting with the big one is called Business Baby. He seems like a Boss Baby joke. The larger green hero seems like more of a Swamp Thing parody. They try to show that most of the heroes on Earth are holding out pretty well against the evil versions, but they are losing the war. Like, they're winning some of the battles, but losing the war ultimately. Omni-Man Mark shows up to help the other evil one, and even though they kind of banter between each other, they start teaming up, fighting all the other heroes, killing them until regular Mark and Eve show up. Back at the GDA, Donald lets Brit and the other heroes help out and agrees to help Adam Eve because she's broken her leg. This winds up being a real big thing for Mark too. Like, they want to show you that he immediately taps out at the first sign that something is wrong with Adam Eve, so this could potentially become a problem in the future too. At the Guardians of the Globe, this evil version of Mark starts destroying the team. It's meant to be a comp to Omni-Man killing them all in Season 1, and he even says that in his universe, his Omni-Man, like his father, did the same thing as this Omni-Man, killing his entire Guardians of the Globe. And even though he winds up ripping off Immortal's head like completely vicious, most of them wind up surviving. They're just really, really hurt. There are only a couple real big name characters that do wind up dying during the actual episode. One of them being Darkwing 2, who sacrifices himself, taking this Mark into the Shadowverse to trap him in there. One of the other Marks tries to kill Debbie, saying that he killed his own version of her in his universe. They wind up talking about that later in the episode too. Some of the versions killed their mothers, and some of them did not. Like, some of them actually loved their mothers.
I hate coming back to this place. Not all of us killed Mom.
One of the other Marks fights Robot. The little troll guy that he mentions is probably Monster Girl from his universe. Then Bulletproof finally joins the fight. Everybody's been wondering where Bulletproof has been. He's so powerful. He's one of the other most powerful characters on the planet next to Invincible and Adam Eve. Then Rex does the classic hero move of sacrificing himself so that everybody else can escape, who winds up detonating the entire building with his powers first. Like, it's actually pretty cool the way he uses his powers. It winds up kamikaze style killing this evil Mark by detonating his entire skeleton. So RIP Rex, press F to pay respects, just as Ray is arriving in her car. They start to show some of the damage around the world. They did this a couple times in the episode, and basically the entire world is toast. Like, it is cooked. It is trash. Things are way worse than they were during Omni-Man's destruction of Chicago. Donald mostly winds up crawling out, kind of, got a few extra city miles on him now, missing a couple legs. Cecil gives Mark a pep talk, trying to convince him why he has to go help. Takes him a minute to actually get there, but eventually he comes around on it. Then they transition to day 3 with a montage of all the other Marks that are still alive watching the cities they've destroyed. There are still 8 left, and it basically burning the planet to the ground slowly. Angstrom Levy makes a Phase 1, Phase 2 reference. Make all your Marvel jokes that you want. Time to move into Phase 2. They literally just ended the last season of The Boys with Sage doing the exact same thing. Time to move to Phase 2. Basically, the next part of his plan is to show up himself, like finally arrive, and then torture Mark and kill his family in front of him, then kill Mark himself. But it winds up being mutiny because all the other surviving versions of Mark complain that most of them are dead. Like, you got most of us killed with your plan sucks. And they're pissed because he hasn't delivered on the promises he made to them. Like I said, a lot of them bargained with him to help take over the multiverse, and one of them just wanted this main version of Debbie. They all had slightly different bargains that they made, but he's still reneged on all of them, which winds up leading to them rebelling against him. Love the way they compromise on this too, where they're like, no, we can't kill him, we'll just torture him because we need him so that we can get back to our original universes. Winds up knocking them all into the post-apocalyptic version of Earth that he tried to strand Mark on in Season 2 until the Guardians of the Globe from the future helped get him back, meaning that now he's on his own to finish this off. Mark then finally leaves the hospital when he hears about Angstrom Levy being found, Cecil portaling him straight to the fight, now using his probes in his cybernetic power suit, which are right out of the comics, and give him a huge power upgrade. This winds up being one of the cooler fights that they've done in the last couple episodes. I still think the Conquest fight is probably going to be cooler, like everyone's looking forward to the Conquest fight more, but this is still a pretty cool fight. Basically showing you how much Mark has learned since their last fight, so the Angstrom Levy's go-to move, portaling him to other universes, doesn't work. Like, he's found a way to counteract that, causing him to try and overwhelm him with his army of drones. Also using that part of the fight, like when it transitions to him just trying to push his way through all those drones. Now, this is right out of the comics, but you could also look at this as a comp to Man of Steel with the Henry Cavill Superman underneath that beam at the end of his movie, doing the same type of thing. Showing you how strong this version of Mark has gotten, that he can just punch his way through that army of drones. He's going to need to be as strong as possible if he's going to do anything to stop Conquest. Oliver then shows up wanting Mark to kill him for what he's done, and even though Mark has tried so hard to set a good example for him all season, like they had an entire episode where that was the whole thing, teaching him killing is not right, like no, you need to watch out for collateral damage. For just a minute, Mark actually does try to kill Angstrom Levy, saying that he's left him no choice, but he still winds up escaping barely, with Mark only getting his arm.
We had a deal that you failed to honor.
Love the way they pay off this Angstrom Levy moment too, like even though he's alive, things do not end well for him in this technician universe. Claiming he's going to get the remaining Invincibles off that apocalypse planet, return, try to finish the job, but the technicians, like I said, are voiced by Doug Bradley, who most of you will recognize as Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies, such an iconic voice, like instantly identifiable. This whole dimension feels kind of like a hell, and the technicians look like Cenobites, like I said, basically mad at him for the same reason that the other evil Marks were too, that he hasn't delivered on the promises he made to the technicians. Not totally clear what he promised them, probably something to do with the multiverse, like that's the whole thing that he has to promise to people, he can take them to other universes. Maybe the technicians just wanted technology from other universes. Telling him no, they're not going to repair him, he works for them now because he hasn't held up to his promises, showing that they built fail-safe controls into his cybernetic parts, the repairs they made him, so they can hurt him, even kill him if they want. Love the way they frame the shot in the technician's eyes too as they end the scene with him talking about the endless fascination. Like I said, that's a direct line out of the Hellraiser movies, or it's close to the Hellraiser movies. Remember, copyright safe, don't want to get sued by the studio that owns the rights to all the Hellraiser movies. But the whole idea is that Angstrom Levy survives another day to eventually come back into the story in the distant future. So eventually we'll probably see Angstrom Levy doing stuff, but it's going to be a good long while before that happens. For at least a hot minute, Angstrom Levy is going to be busy with the technicians here, being tortured probably. Then they do another montage of all the damage around the world, like I said, way worse than Omni-Man's attack and the collateral damage from the Chicago fight. They work to help save more survivors. They start to end on a hopeful moment. Cecil and Mark even seem like they're a little better off, but he still kind of hates him. Even in New York, Powerplex, helping people out. Winds up ruining the good moment though, snapping right back into evil mode. Doesn't waste any time trying to attack Invincible as they hold him, soaking all the damage until he uses all of his energy, Cecil having him arrested again. Powerplex is crazy as ever. Mark winds up taking everything he yells at him to heart, that this is all his fault. Angstrom Levy, all the destruction around the world, all these dead bodies, it's all your fault. It's all because of you. Winds up meeting Eve's parents, like he was talking about at the beginning of the episode, under different circumstances than he was expecting. Mom winds up at least being a little bit nice to him, but father absolutely hates superheroes. She tells him the story of Valerie, the girl who lived across the street from them when Eve was younger. She was actually featured in that Adam Eve one-shot episode I did a video for a long time ago. I'll put a link for it down in the description below because they're probably going to do another one for Rex when Rex was younger too. That was why they were doing all that speechifying on Rex's backstory this season. Cecil has Immortal's body repaired, so he resurrects again. This is one of the many times they've done this, like just like the next time, like probably going to happen again, probably going to get repaired again. As long as you reunite his body parts, he'll heal just like a traditional vampire would, like you put all the body parts together, boom, they're back. He winds up trying to quit so that he can have a family with Kate, like actually have children with her, also kind of implies that he's proposing to her too, which she accepts. So at least they have a happy moment right now. For now. Remember, this is just the beginning. Like, things are going to get so much crazier. Cecil then starts rebuilding the Guardians of the Globe with all the people who quit earlier this season rejoining the team for the most part, except for Mark. Tried to get him to lead the new team, but he declines again. And even though it seems like he just absolutely cannot stand Cecil, like doesn't want anything to do with them, they at least make nice a little bit and make it seem like there might be a chance that they'll make up totally and work together again in the future. Like all is not lost here.
I am Conquest, and I am your last chance to fulfill your duty.
He goes back to start more with the cleanup effort, and just as things start to chill out a little bit, prepare for my arrival, Worm. Conquest finally shows up. And he is voiced by Jeffrey Dean Morgan from Walking Dead. That's the Robert Kirkman connection because Robert Kirkman created Walking Dead. He was responsible for the TV show. If you didn't watch any of those episodes or any of the Walking Dead spin-offs, there are a billion of them now. He played Negan on The Walking Dead for many seasons. There was even a Negan and Maggie spin-off too that he was on. Longtime fans of that show will also remember that Stephen Yeun, who's also the Invincible character, played Glenn, who Negan brutally killed. So basically this is Glenn's rematch with Negan. That's probably the reason why Robert Kirkman wanted Jeffrey Dean Morgan playing Conquest as opposed to someone like Thragg, for instance. All their dialogue, like everything he says when he comes down, when they meet, when they launch at each other, to the credits at the end of the episode, all directly off the comic book page. Presumably, their fight will just cover all of episode 8, and then they'll end another WTF kind of cliffhanger moment pushing into season 4. Generally, they're trying to be pretty accurate to the original comic book storyline, so if you don't want to wait for like future story, you can go out and read the comics right now. There are only a couple substitutions and things that they changed for rights issues, like if they have copyright issues. Really bummed they couldn't do the Spawn character, that would have been crazy. But if there are any other Easter eggs or references during the episode that you spotted that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. Now that we have Jeffrey Dean Morgan playing Conquest, who do you want to play Thragg? Because he was my original choice for that character, so it's wide open now. Maybe they can get Bryan Cranston to come on the show. Robert Kirkman out here collecting Breaking Bad and Walking Dead actors like they're Pokemon. My full episode 8 finale video will post next week after they release it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that stuff. And it's kind of peak in general right now because we also have the brand new Daredevil episodes at the same time. So like we have Conquest, Invincible War, and Daredevil all at the same time. Everybody click here for my Daredevil episode 1 and episode 2 video, and click here for all my Invincible episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.